So my remit for this particular presentation is to do with detail. So the question was looking at what does science and research, the research facet of our profession, have to do to deliver research that is congruent, impactful to practice, and translate to create better chiropractors. So to discuss this, I'm going to quote from a section of a peer-reviewed journal article published last September entitled Chiropractic Care for Infants and Children. There is no evidence for it and it's dangerous, with a question mark. So it's a selective review of the literature. Now, this is an article that I published last year. It's available free online. I apologise, there'll be a lot of big words in it too. These are free online. Go back, dive into them. They're important to understand the terms used. So it starts with, they highlight one of the fundamental problems in assessing clinical interactions that involve a hands-on approach with an objectivist quantitative methodology designed for traditional Western medical approaches such as medication. A pragmatic constructivist methodology would be more appropriate for this assessment. In their second edition 2011 text on clinical research in complementary therapies, Lewis, Jonas and Wallach made several salient comments. They say, we've also seen substantial advances in how we think about complementary medicine. Research funders are beginning to understand that the range of complementary and alternative medicines, or CAM, on offer are not simply alternative medications, but in themselves complex systems of diagnosis and treatment. The mixed qualitative and quantitative research methods beginning to unravel this complex therapeutic interaction may not only allow us to understand how complementary medicines themselves may be offering benefit, but should also give us a remarkable insight into the management and self-management of a variety of different chronic problems. It will guide and inform us as to how we can enable our patients, particularly those with chronic illness, to improve their own well-being. Now, we've begun to understand that simple placebo-controlled randomised clinical trials offer us a very limited evidence base and that we need to expand our research methodology and its interpretation, taking into account a whole variety of different types of evidence so we can begin to understand how to best manage illness within the community. These approaches are beginning to filter into the way we consider and manage NHS and US health service policy within conventional medicine for a range of interventions. And they finish with, the more we understand about chronic illness, the more we understand how limited some of our evidence base appears to be, and the more we need to understand about illness and its societal, personal, and environmental impact. The more we understand that the human organism, and these are their words, is a complex system that creates health on a continuous basis, the more we can see there are multiple roads of teasing a diseased system back into optimal balance. This is what has become known as the self-healing response, and complementary therapies can be conceptualised as methods of making use of this self-healing response of the organism. That ends their quote, which is a pretty amazing statement. There's a fundamental difference in the ontological perception may lead to significant cognitive dissonance. It commonly creates false perceptions with the resultant inaccurate appreciations of the nature of reality related to what is being studied. In one of my qualifications now in graduate education and university level, and Robley and Doyle are well published in this field, and they describe the key oppositional theories regarding ontology. Objectivist theories assert that knowledge is absolute and it mirrors reality, whereas constructivist theories postulate that knowledge is not absolute since an understanding of reality changes in the light of new experiences. We see this in quantum physics and approaches that look there. So issues appear to arise when objectivist quantitative measures are used to understand processes that are more accurately reflected in a pragmatic constructivist approach. This can be seen at odds with the general zeitgeist of the Western world, placing the scientific process, and particularly the objectivist approach, on a pedestal. The scientific process is a tool of application for understanding the nature of reality as it pertains to whatever object they are studying. However, this is commonly confused as an end in and of itself. For example, something is only given as true and real if it's been demonstrated objectively in scientific studies. This concept has been explored in depth by Sorrell in his text on scientism and the philosophy infatuation with science. This is seen time and again in both the research literature and the popular press. So that's the thinking I had around research. And to probably better understand some of the differing perspectives, you can access that journal It's volume 44, number 3 of the CJ Online. It's got a brilliant article written by Ken Harvey of FOSM fame, giving his perspective on chiropractic and research. It's got my article, which you'll see has a very different interpretation. And Phil Eberl's written an excellent article on is evidence-based medicine damaging the consciousness of chiropractic. So it gives you a good overview of the fundamental differences in perception relating to the interpretation of evidence for chiropractic care. Now we look at what's happening at the moment. One of the world experts in research to do with neck pain would be Gwendolyn Jull. She's a PhD, an expert in manipulative therapy and rehabilitation. She's a physiotherapist at the University of Queensland, has more than 300 publications behind her name. She was involved in the World Health Organisation's Bone and Joint Decade Task Force, particularly looking at neck-associated whiplash and neck disorders. Her comments in Cairns at the CAA's National Congress in October noted that most of the RCT work has focused primarily on pain. So after her 20 years of study and her high-level research, she was commenting that the next level of research really needs to look at more functional rehabilitation and markers of improved function again without just focusing on pain. Now this is a concept that I've heard from chiropractors for my entire time in the profession, and we still appear to struggle in that dimension. I believe we need to look to where the ball is going. As Mark discussed, we need to have a perspective, a worldview, a rationale for why we conduct research. We have great, high-level, well-respected and acknowledged research. Some of you might recognise that line from the March 7th CBA advertising guidelines. We have great, high-level, well-respected, acknowledged research confirming chiropractic is an excellent, expensive, average treatment for a range of musculoskeletal presentations. Very exciting. We need to play bigger than that. We live in a world where new life is being discovered in crystal formations. I was listening to that yesterday on the ABC. We're living in a universe where the solar system TRAPPIST appears to have 7 Earth-sized planets that might be able to support water. We need research that comes from the bigger picture, that asks questions from an ontological perspective congruent with chiropractic, that the human is a living homeodynamic system in a consistent process of adaptation, an integration that is a large part regulated through its neural network, that a healthy spinal function is integral to human healthy function, that subluxation has wide-ranging potential negative effects on that function, and that chiropractic care has the potential to improve the salutogenic capacity of that individual and their resultant epigenetic expression. What does this mean? We can look at quality of life, look at kids, families, adults, well-being scales. We can look at functional markers of stress and adaptation, cortisol, heart rate variability, functional testing beyond pain reproduction. We can look at qualitative research looking at the lived experience of the mother-child dyad, the chiropractor, of the tribes that you serve every day in their age and genders. There are only a few areas that we can look at, and there are many more within that mixed methods constructive approach. We need to explore more than the neck pain and nutrition studies to date with the ACORN project. These are mixed method approaches will give us better questions that can facilitate this. And finally, I'll touch base on what the 2011 text on research in CAM stated. Now this is only from authors with 14 PhDs, 13 MDs. There was one chiropractor from the ACC who practice in the US, in Canada, in Germany and the UK. So their words were, the more we understand that the human organism is a complex system that creates health on a continuous basis, the more we see that there are multiple roads of teasing a disease system back into optimal balance. So we're not alone in our philosophic approach to health and to research. We need to mind our language, ask congruent questions that apply to our lived experience in practice every day, and support research and institutions congruent with that philosophy.